Hi, my name is Brooke Blythe, and my science fair project is on the effect of climate change on sea surface temperatures and ocean circulation. The problem is how climate change affects sea surface temperature and ocean circulation. The hypothesis is that climate change is causing sea surface temperature to rise and ocean circulation to increase or speed up. The first step in the procedure is go to the NOAA Track a Drifter website. The second step is to click on the ID number. The third step is to click on the maps and measurements that will be used to make the graphs. The fourth step is to click on the table of measurements. The fifth step is to record the date, location, sea surface temperature, longitude, and latitude for each day at 12 a.m. The sixth step is to put this information onto Google Excel. The seventh step is to find the distance traveled. The eighth step is to graph the data on online graphs. The ninth step is to compare and contrast the charts. And the 10th step is to repeat steps 3 to 7 for the other drifters. As can be seen from the drifters when looking at sea surface temperature versus date, there is clearly a decreasing trend in sea surface temperature. When looking at distance traveled versus date, it may not be obvious, but there is a pattern. While the height may differ, the pattern is an increase, then a decrease, and finally an increase. Certain charts may repeat this pattern more than once, but all charts start from a higher point, then decrease, and finally end with a higher point. As shown in the drifters, when looking at distance traveled versus sea surface temperature, the trend is decreased, then an increase. In some drifters, this pattern repeated itself several times. The reason drifter 410161 may not have the same trend as the other drifters is because the drifters stopped moving and had the same longitude and latitude at the end, while drifter 170159 may not have the same pattern as the others because the sea surface temperature drastically changed from around 0 to 3. Since the distance traveled didn't change that much, it's possible that the drifter could have drifted away from its previous current and found its way into another current. It was hypothesized that the sea surface temperature would increase, but it was found to decrease. Therefore, the hypothesis was not supported by the data. While there was a pattern in the distance traveled, when looking at how it relates to sea surface temperature, there is not a correlation. The researchers' experimental procedure was efficient at showing trends in sea surface temperature, but was inefficient at showing a correlation between ocean circulation and sea surface temperature. Sea surface temperature is decreasing due to the melting of sea ice. Research shows that temperature is increasing due to climate change, which will cause sea surface temperature to increase as well. At a certain point, the sea surface temperature will increase so much that the sea ice will melt. The melting of the sea ice will then cause the sea surface temperature to decrease. In the future, when there is little or no sea ice, the researcher predicts there will be a rapid increase in sea surface temperature. Ocean circulation seems to have little to no correlation with the sea surface temperature. Other factors like trade winds, topography, salinity, ocean storms, and earthquakes must have a larger effect on ocean circulation. There was no evidence to support both of the hypotheses. The researcher would like to expand on the amount of drifters due to the inconsistency in the correlation between ocean circulation and sea surface temperature. To further the study, the researcher would change the amount of drifters used. For example, instead of using 5 drifters, the researcher would have looked at 20 drifters to see how accurate the results were. The researcher would also like to expand on different locations, specifically to see how the location affects the results. Thank you for listening.